Some of you might remember that about a year ago, I put out a capsule meal plan. And my idea for this was sort of a minimalist concept to cooking. So I made a short list of ingredients, about 20 altogether, and I made as many recipes as possible, and I was able to come up with over 20 ideas for things that I could make with those particular ingredients. And I made a video about it, and I put out an ebook. In today's video, I'm gonna revisit that capsule meal plan, and I'm gonna give you some more ideas for recipes that can be made using that short list of ingredients that I included in that particular capsule meal plan. So I will leave some links in the description box below where you can print out some of the recipes that I found on various websites that work with this capsule of ingredients. And if you didn't get a chance to purchase my printable capsule meal plan that accompanied that video last year, a link is in the description box, and I'm putting it on sale for 7 days. Tonight I am making this chicken corn chowder. It is from Life in the Loft House. I've made some recipes from them before and been very pleased, so I'll leave this one linked in the description box below. It's a slow cooker recipe, and almost all of the ingredients are included in that capsule of ingredients from my first capsule meal plan book, save for the bacon and the green onions, which are really just for garnish at the end. The only other thing is that it calls for heavy whipping cream, but I've decided just to substitute milk for that, so you'll see how I'm doing that here at the end of the recipe. Let's get it going. In my slow cooker here, I have about 1 pound of chicken breast. And to that, I am adding 3 tablespoons of butter that I just cubed up, 3 regular russet potatoes that I peeled and chopped into little bite-sized pieces, and then 2 ears of fresh corn, and I just sliced the corn off the cob. I didn't cook it ahead of time, just sliced it right off the cob. You could, of course, use frozen corn like the original recipe calls for, but since it's August when I'm filming this, corn is still in season here in Oklahoma, and it's delicious, so I'm gonna use some of that. Adding some salt, adding some pepper, adding about 1 tablespoon of this roasted chicken better than bouillon. By the way, that's a corn silk, it's not a hair. I didn't quite clean my corn well enough. And I'm going to add just enough water to submerge everything. So probably right around 3 cups. Can you tell I don't want to dirty up another spoon since there's, I've already used this peeler, so I have to put it in the dishwasher anyway. Pop the lid on. I'm gonna let it cook on low for about 5 or 6 hours, and we'll come back and add some more stuff to it. Unfortunately, I came back to my crock pot about an hour after I had thought I started it, and the crock pot was not quite plugged in all the way. So I bumped my crock pot up to high, and it's been cooking on high for about 3.5 hours, and it's ready now. I took my chicken breast out and I shredded the chicken up. It did cook just fine for 3.5 hours on high in my crock pot, which actually cooks kind of hot. And I am putting that just right back in to the chowder. The original recipe calls for heavy cream, which is not in my capsule of ingredients. So what I have here is 1.5 cups of milk and about 1/4 cup, 3 to 4 tablespoons of cornstarch. And you want to stir that cornstarch into the cold milk and then pour it all together into the slow cooker here. Because if you try to just stir the cornstarch into the slow cooker without first stirring it into a liquid, it will immediately clump up, because as soon as it hits heat, it's gonna, start to help thicken everything up. I'm also just a little worried that this is gonna be a little bland because it doesn't have a lot of seasoning in it. So I'm just gonna add a little extra salt and pepper, and then I'm gonna pop the lid back on, and I'm gonna let it cook on high for about 20 to 30 more minutes until it starts to thicken up. This turned out so great. I just added a little bit of shredded cheese into mine, and I raided the refrigerator for some veggies and the bread box for some kind of bread item to add. I think that it tastes really good with just the milk. I actually don't think it would need the cream. That would definitely make it a lot more rich. Maybe half and half, but honestly, I think with the butter added in there to add a little bit of fat to the rest of the lean ingredients, that this is very flavorful with really simple ingredients. The idea for a capsule meal plan came to me because that's the kind of wardrobe that I utilize. If you're not familiar, a capsule wardrobe is where you keep fewer articles of clothing and you make them be more versatile. Like you can mix and match those pieces to create different outfits. I started doing this when I was teaching because I've always been overstimulated by fashion and clothing and makeup and all that kind of stuff. So I just made it easier on myself by having fewer choices, but all items that could sort of pair together to create lots of different outfits. So I started to think about how that might be useful where cooking is concerned, and maybe utilizing a smaller number of ingredients would be helpful to somebody who is trying to stay on a budget, or maybe somebody who even has limited storage space. You know, they don't have a lot of space to be able to store like a huge pantry full of lots of different kinds of ingredients. I am just browning up a little ground beef here on the stove for tonight's dinner. I am making something that is similar to this Korean ground beef, and it's coming from the website Bellyful. So I'll leave the original recipe linked in the description box below. I'm gonna make a few adjustments. So let me show you what I'm using to make this. This little meal is gonna come together super fast with a very limited amount of ingredients. So I've got a pound of ground beef here, and I've got some steam in the bag green beans, and I am going to go ahead and toss these into the microwave and steam them according to the package directions. If you want to use fresh green beans, you would probably want to trim them and blanch them, you know, at least get them cooking a little bit before you add them into the pot with the beef. You'll see here in a minute. And I'm going to use some basics from my pantry to season it. I'm going to use soy sauce and brown sugar. And I'm going to throw in just a little bit of this chili garlic sauce. You could leave that out. We like just a little bit of a kick. If you wanted a little bit of a kick and you didn't have this, but you had like some red pepper flake, you could sprinkle some of those in there. Totally up to you. My beef is done cooking, and I steamed my green beans just right in the bag according to the package directions in the microwave. So I'm gonna add those to my skillet, along with about 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of lower sodium soy sauce, and 1/4 cup of water. So this is 3/4 cup of liquid total. And I'm also gonna add probably about a tablespoon or so of this chili garlic sauce to add just a little bit of heat. I wanna stir this all together and make sure that those ingredients are evenly dispersed across the beef and the beans. I wanna bring it to a simmer. And then I'm just gonna let it simmer for about 5 or 6 minutes or so. It should thicken up a little bit with the brown sugar in there. That'll help with that. And then we'll be ready to serve it. When it comes to starches to serve this with, I think a lot of us would immediately assume rice, or maybe even cauliflower rice if you're trying to do like the low carb thing. I have also cooked up some ramen noodles and put them into a skillet dish like this before. And those things aren't in this particular capsule of ingredients. So if I was staying within this capsule of ingredients, I would probably consider either serving it over a baked potato, which I know sounds really odd, but baked potatoes are like a palette. They're just like a blank palette. So they take on whatever, you know, flavors that you put on them or with them. So I think it would be just fine with that. Or since spaghetti was part of this capsule of ingredients, I might consider cooking up a little bit of spaghetti, like some spaghetti noodles, cook them up separately, and then toss them into the skillet with the ingredients towards the end and just kind of toss it all together and serve it that way. I'll also add, I think this would work just fine with broccoli also. When I was making that capsule meal plan, I think I talked about, you know, subbing out different kinds of vegetables that you liked, because not every single recipe was dependent upon having, you know, the same vegetable. So if you don't have green beans, or you want to try broccoli instead, or maybe you want to use like some bell peppers, or even just like a frozen stir fry mix, I think that would go just fine in this dish also. Here it is, and I've already tasted this, and I have to say I'm always amazed at how like good these really simple few ingredient meals like this taste. And I probably spent less than 15 minutes putting this together. And that was even with like filming it, turning the camera on, moving it around. So a really quick and easy dish. Lots of versatility here, lots of ways to change it up with different starches, different veggies. So this one's a winner for me. If you like the idea of working with a short ingredient list that is already curated for you, then you might want to check out HelloFresh. They are sponsoring today's video. One of the things that I love about HelloFresh is that it takes some of the tedious tasks out of meal planning, because all I have to do is go to their website, pick out the meals that I want to make, and they will send them to my door in a nice, neat little box, and all of the ingredients for each meal are in their own little bag. It comes with a recipe card with step-by-step instructions, and all I have to do when I'm ready to make that meal is pull that bag and the protein they sent me that goes along with it out of the refrigerator, follow the directions, and it's done. And speaking of back to school, I'm actually perusing their website right now because in addition to dinners, HelloFresh now offers quick and easy breakfast and lunch kits, including some that are designed for kids. For instance, this one is a kids make and take pita pizzas with apple slices, carrot sticks, trail mix, and waffle strips. So they'll send you everything that you need to put together those lunches for your kids in less than 15 minutes. I'm also seeing some heat and eat options like coconut chicken or lasagna with meat sauce ready to heat, and they even have a recipe in this week's menu offerings that is designed for the slow cooker. They know how to speak my language. If you've never tried it before, now's a good time, and let me tell you why. You can get 50% off plus free shipping when you use my code 50MINDY. That's 50MINDY at HelloFresh.com, or you can scan this really nifty QR code right here and it'll take you to their website. Again, my code is 50MINDY for 50% off plus free shipping. Plus, they have over 40 recipes to choose from each week. They cater to a variety of lifestyles, and I have to say they are delicious. If you haven't checked out HelloFresh or you just haven't checked them out in a while, I'm telling you, you need to head over to their website and see what they have to offer. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code 50MINDY at checkout for 50% off plus free shipping. Dinner tonight is this Italian ground beef and potatoes recipe. It's coming from a spicy perspective, so I will leave it linked in the description box below. And it's a skillet recipe, and pretty much the only thing that is in this recipe that was not in my original capsule of ingredients is a little bit of Asiago or Parmesan cheese that's used as a garnish at the end. Now, cheese was in my capsule of ingredients. I think for this particular capsule meal plan, I used cheddar cheese, and I think cheddar cheese would be just fine in this. But, you know, the cheese is added at the end, and you could always live without it. But if you have a little bit of parm, I have a little bit in my fridge, then you could sprinkle that on the top at the end. So let's get started. In my skillet, I have a pound of ground beef here that is just about done browning. And I'm going to add about half of an onion chopped. I'm also gonna add just a little drizzle of olive oil. I usually like to wait to add oil that recipes call for when we're using ground beef to see how much fat the ground beef actually renders when it's cooking, because that fat obviously will help brown the onions as well, and I don't want, you know, to add a bunch of extra if we don't need it. The onions have been sauteing with the ground beef now for about 3 or 4 minutes, and they're starting to get translucent. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon or so of minced garlic and a couple of teaspoons of Italian seasoning. Oops, try a little bit more. Salt and pepper to taste. Gonna stir that around and just let it saute for about 60 seconds or so until that garlic starts to get fragrant. Now I'm adding about 1.5 pounds of potatoes, peeled and cubed, just little bitty cubes about this size. And for me, that was about 5 small potatoes, like small to medium-ish potatoes. 1 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes, plus 2 cans worth of water. That would be right around 3 to 3.5 cups. It also calls for a pinch of red pepper flake, which I'm going to go ahead and put in because my family does like a little bit of kick. If you don't like this, or you have people in your household that don't care for spicy stuff, you can just leave that out. I want to bring this to a simmer and let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes until the potatoes are tender. And it does not say to cover it. So I'm gonna leave it uncovered and bring it to a simmer and let it simmer. And as the potatoes cook, it should soak up some of that water. Okay, this is really tasty and definitely just a slightly different spin on the skillet ground beef and potato hash type recipes that I would normally make. I wouldn't have thought to go for more of like an Italian style flavor profile, but it's really good. And the potatoes cooked perfectly. It did not take very long at all. They soaked up all of that moisture. I was worried that it would be runny, but it turned out fantastic. Yum. Included in the list of ingredients that I used for this capsule meal plan was a yellow cake mix, because I wanted to make sure that I included some recipes for like desserts or treats. And you can, if you want, just follow the directions on the back of the box and make the cake as it specifies. Or you can make an even better version, because just about everything that you need to make a bakery quality cake or cupcakes is included in this capsule of ingredients. I've already got my cake mix in the bowl here. And instead of adding 1/2 cup of oil like the box recommends, I'm adding 1/2 cup or 1 stick of melted butter. And instead of adding 1 cup of water like it recommends, I'm adding 1/2 cup of milk, preferably a higher fat content milk like whole milk. Instead of 3 eggs, we're doing 4. And in addition to all that, half a cup of sour cream. I know it sounds weird putting sour cream in a cake, but just trust me. Trust me, trust me. Give it a mix. And see how much like thicker this cake batter is as opposed to when you make it the box way. I feel like when I make it according to the box directions, it's kind of runny. This is like much thicker and fluffier. Now you can make this in a 9x13. You can make 2 8 or 9 inch, you know, round cakes if you want to do a layer cake. But I almost always turn it either into 2 dozen cupcakes or I pour it into a bundt pan. So we're actually gonna go the bundt route today, and I've already generously greased my bundt pan. My oven has been preheating to 350, and I'm gonna pop this in the oven and let it bake until it's done. I don't like to give finite cook times, especially on baked goods, because I think it just depends on your oven. I think it depends on like the time of year, might depend on where you live, but typically bundt cakes for me are gonna take anywhere from 40 to 50 minutes. My cake turned out beautiful. It is cooling on the counter right now, and I am whipping up a little chocolate glaze to put over the top. So I have 2 tablespoons of water and 2 tablespoons of butter, which I have already melted here on the stove in this little pot. And I'm gonna add about a teaspoon or so of vanilla. I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. I wish I had a little bit more, but that's about all the cocoa powder I have. I'd probably rather have 3, but this will work. We will make do. I'm gonna stir that all together, and then I'm going to slowly whisk in about 1 cup of powdered sugar. Then I'm gonna remove it from the heat. I want it to cool and thicken up a little bit, and then after I remove the cake from the bundt pan, we'll pour it over the top. Confession. This cake turned out kind of ugly. This is not how I intended it to look. I let the frosting get just a little bit too thick, and I had intended to pour it over the top and just let it kind of run down the sides of the cake, but that is not how it worked out, and I ended up not having quite enough frosting and needed to make just a little bit more. But this is why I'm just a regular, everyday mom here in my kitchen making stuff for my family. And when we're making stuff for our family, it doesn't really matter how it looks, it matters how it tastes, right? So let's give it a try. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I know people don't like this word, but it's so moist. It doesn't fall apart, like it doesn't become like crummy. You know how sometimes cakes are so dry that like you can't even get any of it on your fork? Really good. I wish I'd been able to make it look better. The icing's actually really good. I should have just made more of it. I didn't have quite enough cocoa powder to double it up, but it's good. Or you could just buy like a can of icing and maybe, you know, use that on top. Maybe even warm it up in the microwave just a little bit, pour it over the top. Yum. Don't forget to check out all those links in the description box below, and thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Check out this video next and see if there's something helpful there for you.